How can I comment on being invisible for 30 years? Yeah. Um, Originally, Richard and I were partners, worked together, and were teaching Gestalt at the University of California, well, basically to make some money for both of us. We were both students at the time. We invited Grinder to join us. Actually, Richard invited him. And to kind of examine, to see if there was something that he could find in the linguistics area of what we were doing, because he was a linguistics professor at the time. He joined us, asked us a bunch of questions after we did Gestalt groups, and we were excited about what he asked us and what he said, and so we decided to do it on purpose, and we spent the next 6 years, 6.5 years or so, moving through different stages of development. First we had a few graduate students join us, and then, and little by little, I became, well, I was married at the time, and then basically it was Santa Cruz, California, and the relationship between my wife and I changed, and then I became involved with another woman. And it was kind of natural the way things were done there. And over time, I had been involved with ladies that both John Grinder and Richard Bandler were involved with later. And at some point, it became necessary for me to move on to the rest of my life. I left in late 76, maybe 77, left Santa Cruz. I went to Oklahoma, actually originally to San Diego. I took several of the researchers from the original Meta group, which is what we called NLP before Meta. Took them with me to San Diego because I was kind of the team leader for the research. John and Richard and I, our relationships evolved over time. First it was Richard and I were together as a team, and kind of John was the out guy, the other guy. Then John and Richard got close together for 4 or 5 years, and I was the out guy. And then after that, eventually, John and I are now together, and Richard is the out guy. So Richard has been the out guy for, he's got his 20 plus years in now. I never quit NLP. I never stopped doing it. I just didn't do it in California. And actually, that's not true. I did it in San Diego for a while. We had Meta Institute in San Diego for about 4 years. Then I had a business opportunity in Oklahoma I couldn't refuse. I moved to Oklahoma. Opened Meta Institute there, left Meta Institute in San Diego to my friends. They continued to operate it for 3 or 4 more years, and then they all went on to their own careers. I had mine. I had Midwestern United States was mine. I worked there. I taught there. I did NLP there. I ran treatment centers for young drug addicts there. I did a lot of things there. And I spent a lot of time with my son, but I just never presented myself on the international level. Didn't need to. Had plenty of work, plenty of valuable things to do. Was raising a young professional motocross racer and traveling all over the country and enjoying my life. Married again a few times, and then I had the opportunity in '87 to come to Russia the first time, to Moscow. I went. I loved it. It was wow. It was exciting, interesting, crazy, like me. I fit perfectly in Moscow at the time. And I moved to Moscow in '88, then to St. Petersburg, then to Odessa. So I've been here since '88 in beautiful downtown Russia, Ukraine, Odessa. I lived in St. Petersburg, I lived in Moscow, and now I live in Odessa. And so why 30 years? I wasn't gone. I just was not presenting myself on the international level. I was doing mostly business consulting from the middle '80s, from when I moved to Oklahoma. I moved to Oklahoma to assist businesses, and so my focus became more business consulting. So I didn't teach NLP anymore. I used it, and there were people who always would find out that I was one of the 3 people who originated NLP, so they'd kind of twist my arm and have me do some NLP training from here and there. But I was doing treatment, I was doing business consulting, I was working with young people with problems, and I was happy, busy, doing what I wanted to do. So there was really no business for me to run around going, I'm one of the guys, I'm one of the guys. Why? I had my life and so forth. So when John decided to write about the fact that there were 3 of us in Whispering in the Wind, in the book that he wrote with Judy, with Carmen, I think. Carmen, yeah. And suddenly people started calling me and going, who the hell, what is it, you're what? There was 3 guys? And I go, oh, yeah. And so it's gone from there. People are starting to know now. As John started mentioning me and people started calling me and so forth, and I've been friends with John all this time. We meet, we play golf, we play racquetball, we are friends, we're family friends, have been all this time. And I consider him one of the special, wonderful people in my life. I think John increased the quality of my life immeasurably, maybe completely. So we've been friends all this time. And I was getting a lot of questions about why weren't you there? Why didn't people talk about you? What really happened and so forth. And when I saw some of the other people interviewed, some of those 6 or 8 or 10 people that are famous NLP people, and when I hadn't paid any attention for a long time, and when I finally was kind of pushed back into the NLP world on an international level, I did the keynote in London 3 years ago at the London NLP conference. I have done programs in London and now England and now different places, Italy, Germany, and other places on NLP. People kept asking me the same questions. Well, why weren't you there and what happened and how did it really start and so forth and so on. And when I listened to the other originators who aren't originators and listened to their stories and realized how wrong they were, and how inaccurate they were, and how many really good people's names besides my own were being forgotten in this process, I talked to John and I went, do you get a lot of questions about how we started? He goes, constantly. And I said, did you answer him? He goes, no. And I go, well, have you noticed what other people are saying about what we did? And he goes, I don't read that crap. And I go, boy, I shouldn't be reading it either, because it's not good. So he goes. So I said, well, look, why don't we do something about that? Why don't we just once and for all, I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I told him, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll find some of the real people, the real originators, and ask them to write their stories, in chapter form, and I'll write mine and you write yours. Miracle that we were involved with is talked about in a realistic way by the actual people who did it. And so I found most of them, and a few of them decided they didn't want to write, and for all their own reasons, not good, not bad reasons, but all personal reasons. Either they forgot, or it's been too long, or. But quite a few of them did, the ones in the book, and they wrote, and John and I looked at their chapters and so forth, and we decided to once and for all tell people what actually happened. And that's what we did. Originally, I was invited to Moscow by 3 Russian psychologists who were touring America for one of the first times they could get out of Russia in 1987. And there was actually 8 or 9 of them in a group, and they were in San Francisco. And they were at a friend of mine's house, and 3 of them wanted to learn 3 things. And my friend thought about it a minute and said, there's only one person in the world I know that happens to know those 3 things at a very high level, And that's a guy in Oklahoma, and I was living in Oklahoma at the time. So the next thing I know, I get a call from one of my psychologist friends in San Francisco, and they say, I've got 9 Russians in my house. And I said, do you want me to call the police? And they said, no, it's not like that. It's that they're psychologists and they're good. And 3 of them want to study these 3 things, and you're the only guy I know that knows those 3 things. And I said, yeah. And he said, so can I send you 3 Russians? And I went, okay. 1987. No, Russians, Americans didn't hang out together in those years. So I said, why not? So the next day I went to the airport at Oklahoma City and picked up 3 Russians. And they were going to stay for 3 days, and they stayed for 3 weeks. And we became fast friends, and then they invited me to Moscow. And I went to Moscow the first time, and the first day in Moscow I went to a sanatorium with my friend, the Russian friend that I'd met in America. And I was smack dab in the middle of 1,000 Russian psychologists at a psychology conference for Moscow psychologists, right? And I think in those days, one of them could speak English. And I didn't know 3 words in Russian. I knew da and yet, that was it. And so there I was, and I did a speech and a couple of demonstrations and stuff at this conference. I found incredibly well-educated people, incredibly well-intentioned people who couldn't do crap. They did not know how to do anything worth a damn. But they were incredibly well educated. They had no practical training, as far as I could see, at all. So they could talk a great story, they just couldn't do anything. So for me, I was in heaven because I was poorly educated, but I could do everything. So we fit together pretty well, hand in glove. I had some education, but nothing like they did. But I was coming from an NLP background, coming from all do, practice, go. We fit together really nicely, and I loved it. So I jumped right back into the NLP world when I first came to Moscow. And then little by little I moved back into my primary profession, which was consulting, and which is my primary business now, as you know. I've worked deals, consulted companies, rode the wave in the dangerous rough times during the late 80s and early 90s when it was real easy to get in big trouble and big hurry. Life was pretty crazy and pretty wild and pretty fun, and I liked it. When I was about 5 or 6, my parents moved to San Diego, and I've lived next to the ocean all my life. And so for me, living in St. Petersburg and living in Moscow, not being near the ocean, I felt like a fish out of water. I was traveling all over, of course, everywhere all the time, and I was hired to come and do some training programs in Odessa, and looked around and went, home. This is home. I was looking for a place to grab the ground and kind of make my home. Because once you're like me and travel all over the world for 20, 30 years, you end up being a person with no home, with no base, no roots. And I've always felt that and never really liked that. So I chose Odessa. And I grabbed the ground and held on and have used this as a home base ever since. I like the town, I like the size, I like the people, I like the fact that it's a resort town, that basically people are here to relax and have fun during the summer, and people are kind of just getting through the winters, which are not so terrible. In the winter, it's, I can't think of a better place to live. It's ideal. So when I decided to stay here, I decided to get an assistant, open an office, and kind of build I had seen lots of small consulting companies in every country all over the world, and I liked them. I liked how they felt, I liked how they worked, so I decided to make one for myself. And built PCG, my company that I have now. Have a bunch of great young people working for me. And I want PCG to be a major player in this field for a long time to come. I want PCG to be known for its brand, be known for its quality, be known for its people, and I want PCG to become the strongest consulting company in this 11 time zones. I want to help this world develop. I have some very strong beliefs about what the future should be and could be. And I think that what happens in the ex-Soviet countries during the next 20 years is a major key to the prosperity of the human race in the future. You have 13 time zones of wide open, well-educated, highly motivated people that can do a lot of very, very good things. If they learn to shift from a system that didn't work into a system that really is beneficial. And I'm attempting to help do that. So I'm very pleased with what I'm doing. I don't think I'm doing it fast enough or well enough as I should, but I never do. So I try to keep learning and keep getting better. But it's incredibly interesting. It's incredibly important. It's an amazing opportunity for me and for friends of mine from America that I bring here from time to time to be involved. You and I are involved in my opinion, one of the most important developmental moments that we've had as a race on this planet, and it needs to go well. And if I can help it go well, then maybe I've actually served some purpose during my time here on the planet. That's what I'm attempting to do. The obvious skills, basically, are the base. If you want to be a good tennis player, you have to have a good foundation game. You have to know how to play. If you want to be a good artist, you have to have a voice training and know. If you want to be a good singer, you have to have voice training and know how to sing, unless you're an unusual genius. If you're going to be a car mechanic, you got to go to school to learn how the hell a car works. No matter what you do, you have to have foundation skills. One of the things that worries me a little bit about NLP training and NLP people is they have a tendency to jump over the foundation skills, or to kind of learn the foundation skills so they can learn the fancy stuff, the three-place disassociation and timelines and you know, and how to take synesthesia patterns or submodalities or all of this stuff. And what I'm aware of is that they never learned how the car works, or they didn't spend the time necessary to learn the base skills. Well, what I understand about NLP is if you don't have the base skills, then everything else is luck, hit or miss. Well, state control, meta model, major beliefs, rep systems, embedded suggestions, or the unconscious use of language, which I call systematic use of negation, and motive structures. And those are the 6 bases. You can talk about a couple more. Observation skills, that's kind of like the base of everything. But if you don't have those 6 or 7 base tools in you, built into you, practiced to the level where you can do those things without thinking. When you're playing tennis and Andre Agassi serves to you, or Boris Becker serves to you, and the ball's coming at you you're going to receive serve, and the ball's coming at you at 160 kilometers an hour, you can't think about whether you should change the racket in your hand or whatever. That reaction has to be effective, it has to be accurate, and it has to be automatic. Well, NLP is the same. It's a set of skills. You have the base skills. You have something coming at you, a lot of things coming at you, different anchors, different embedded suggestions, different expressions, different observations, and they're all coming at you at the same time, you can't be, oh geez, I wonder if that's a meta-model violation, or gosh, that's a complex equivalent. You can't do that. You have to, it has to be automatic. You have to return the serve and win the point. Now, once those are all automatic, then you can move on and become finesseful. Then you can move on and become skillful. Then you can become your own professional. But you're never going to be your own professional if you don't have the base skills. Never. No self-taught, half-learned, fundamental tennis player wins championships. Never. You do it right or you don't play at the top level. NLP is exactly the same. You do it right or you don't play at the top level. Simple as that. And so those 6 skills, there's no replacement for them. None.